The hidden signal. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent the better part of 12 years listening to the cosmos. As lead astronomer at the Arecibo Observatory's successor facility in Chile, she had grown accustomed to the random static and occasional pulsar that decorated the endless silence of space. But tonight was different. The signal that painted her screen wasn't random. It had structure, pattern, intelligence. She adjusted her glasses and leaned closer to the monitor, her coffee growing cold beside her. The frequency modulations were unlike anything in the database. They weren't natural phenomena, and they certainly weren't human. Computer, run pattern analysis on signal designation Alpha 77, she commanded. The results came back immediately. No match found in known celestial phenomena. Probability of artificial origin, 97.3%. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the secure phone. This was it. First contact. The moment humanity had waited for since they first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. 3 days later, Colonel Marcus Chen stood before a gathering of the world's top scientists and military advisors in the underground bunker of the United Nations Space Command Headquarters in Geneva. The room hummed with nervous energy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Dr. Vasquez's discovery has been verified by observatories across 6 continents. We are not alone. The signal originates from a point just beyond Neptune's orbit, and it's moving toward us." The room erupted in whispered conversations. Chen raised his hand for silence. "I'm assembling a first contact team. Dr. Vasquez will lead the scientific division. Lieutenant Sarah Kim will handle communications and cryptography. We need our best minds on this." Lieutenant Kim was young, barely 30, but her record in military intelligence was spotless. She had a gift for patterns, for seeing what others missed. As she reviewed the signal data that night, something nagged at her. The primary transmission was clear, almost too clear, but there were ghost frequencies, shadows within shadows. "Colonel," she reported the next morning, "I found something. There's a secondary layer to their transmissions. It's heavily encrypted, but I'm working on it." Chen frowned. "Keep at it. But remember, we don't want to appear hostile. This could be standard procedure for them." The aliens arrived 2 weeks later. Their ships were beautiful crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. They called themselves the Benefactors, and their leader, Ambassador Zara, was a being of ethereal beauty with skin that shimmered like starlight. "People of Earth," Zara's voice resonated across every communication device on the planet simultaneously. "We come in peace. We have watched your development with great interest, and we believe you are ready to join the Galactic Collective." The gifts they brought were beyond imagination. Medical technology that could cure cancer with a touch, energy systems that could power entire cities from a device the size of a shoebox, agricultural enhancements that could feed the hungry masses. World leaders welcomed them with open arms. Humanity celebrated in the streets, but in a secure facility beneath the Pentagon, Lieutenant Kim worked tirelessly on the hidden transmissions. Dr. Vasquez visited her one evening, finding Kim surrounded by screens filled with alien code. "Any progress?" Elena asked, setting down a fresh cup of coffee. Sarah rubbed her eyes. "It's like nothing I've ever seen. The encryption changes every few seconds. But I'm starting to see patterns. Whatever they're hiding, they really don't want us to find it." "Maybe it's just private communications," Elena suggested. "Internal reports, personal messages." "Maybe," Sarah agreed, but her tone suggested she didn't believe it. The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Sarah had finally cracked the algorithm. As the first decoded message appeared on her screen, her blood ran cold. Phase 1 integration, 73% complete. Population docility achieved. Begin preliminary genetic sampling. Prepare harvesting infrastructure. Earth designation. Resource colony 4721. She called Chen immediately. Within an hour, a small group had gathered in the secure facility. "Chen, Vasquez, Kim, and Major James Wallace from Special Operations. "This can't be right," Elena whispered, reading the translated messages. "They're helping us. The technology, the cures. Fattening the cattle," Wallace said grimly. "Making sure we're healthy specimens." Chen paced the room. "We need more information, and we need to be extremely careful. If they realize we know." Over the next weeks, they formed a small resistance cell. They recruited carefully. Dr. Michael Torres from Bioengineering, Captain Lisa Park from the Space Force, and a handful of others they could trust absolutely. They called themselves the Watchers. Sarah continued decoding the alien transmissions, each revelation more horrifying than the last. The benefactors weren't benefactors at all. They were harvesters. For millennia, they had moved from world to world, offering gifts and technology to primitive species, gaining their trust, then systematically harvesting their genetic material and reducing the populations to manageable slave colonies. "They've done this to over 900 worlds," Sarah reported to the group. "Always the same pattern. Integration, pacification, harvest. But why?" Elena asked. "What do they want with our genetic material?" Dr. Torres had been analyzing the medical devices the aliens had distributed. "I think I know. These healing chambers they gave us, they're not just healing. They're scanning, categorizing, selecting. They're looking for specific genetic markers." "For what purpose?" Chen demanded. "Their species is dying," Torres explained. "Something in their own genetic code is breaking down. They need fresh genetic material to stabilize their population. We're not just cattle to them. We're spare parts." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Outside, the world continued to celebrate humanity's new galactic friends. Inside this bunker, 7 people carried the weight of species extinction on their shoulders. "We need proof," Chen said finally. "Concrete evidence that even the most skeptical leader couldn't ignore." "I might have a way," Sarah said. "Their ship in orbit, the one they use for cultural exchange visits. I've been monitoring their transport patterns. If we could get aboard." Wallace leaned forward. "It's suicide. Their security, their technology." "Not if we use their own systems against them," Elena interrupted. "I've been studying their transport beacons. With the right modifications, we could mask our biosignatures, make their systems think we're authorized personnel." Chen considered this. "Even if we get aboard, what then?" "I find their central database," Sarah said. "Download everything. Their plans, their history, evidence of what they've done to other worlds. And I'll look for biological samples," Torres added. "If they're harvesting genetics, they must have a storage facility." The plan was dangerous, possibly impossible. But as Chen looked around the room at these brave souls, he saw not fear but determination. This was humanity at its best, facing annihilation not with surrender but with ingenuity and courage. "We go tomorrow night," he decided, "and if we don't make it back, others will continue the fight." Elena finished. "We've set up dead man switches. If we disappear, everything we know gets broadcast worldwide." As the meeting dissolved, Sarah stayed behind with Chen. "Colonel, there's something else," she said quietly. "In their most recent transmissions, they mentioned something called the Final Protocol. I don't know what it is, but they plan to initiate it within the month." Chen's jaw tightened. "Then we don't have much time." Outside, the stars shone down on an unsuspecting world. Somewhere among them, the benefactors' fleet waited, patient as spiders in their web. But in the depths of Earth, in a room that didn't officially exist, humanity's real first contact team prepared for war. The next night would change everything. One way or another, the masquerade would end. The only question was whether humanity would awaken in time to fight for its survival. As Sarah Kim looked up at the stars through the facility's hidden entrance, she made a silent promise. Whatever the cost, whatever sacrifices had to be made, Earth would not go quietly into the night. The harvesters had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive. The war for Earth's future was about to begin. The Harvest Protocol. The modified transport beacon hummed softly in Sarah Kim's palm as the team huddled in the shadows of the abandoned warehouse. Above them, the benefactor's orbital station gleamed like a second moon, its crystalline structure reflecting Earth's light in prismatic patterns. Beautiful and deadly. "Final equipment check," Colonel Chen whispered. Each team member silently verified their gear. Torres with his biological scanner, disguised as a benefactor medical device, Wallace with concealed weapons that could pass their security, Elena with her modified tablet loaded with intrusion software. "Remember," Chen continued, "we have one shot at this. In and out. No heroics." Sarah activated the beacon. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the air shimmered, and they felt the familiar tingle of the transport beam. The warehouse dissolved around them. They materialized in a gleaming corridor of the orbital station. The walls seemed to pulse with organic light, and the air carried a strange, sweet scent. Sarah quickly checked her scanner. "We're clear." The beacon worked. Their systems register us as maintenance crew. They moved swiftly through the station, following the map Sarah had constructed from intercepted transmissions. The architecture was unsettling. Corridors that curved in impossible ways, doors that appeared solid until approach. Everything felt alive. "Biological storage should be just ahead," Torres whispered, studying his scanner. "I'm reading massive genetic repositories." They rounded a corner and froze. Before them stretched a vast chamber, its walls lined with thousands of crystalline containers. Each one glowed with soft bioluminescence, and inside were samples, genetic material from countless species, preserved in stasis. "My God," Elena breathed. "Look at the labels." Each container bore symbols that Sarah's translator decoded. Vegan Prime. Pacified 2,847 years ago. Centauri Beta. Harvested 1,203 years ago. Kepler 442 bits. Extinction event 5,670 years ago. "They're trophies," Wallace growled. "Every world they've destroyed." Torres was already at work, scanning the containers. "This is it. This is their collection." Genetic samples from over 900 extinct or enslaved species. His scanner beeped urgently. "Wait, there's something different about this section." They followed him to a secured area where the containers glowed brighter. The labels here were different. Earth, Homo sapiens, priority harvest, unique regenerative sequences detected. "Unique regenerative sequences?" Elena asked. Torres's face had gone pale. "Our DNA. There's something in human genetics they've never seen before, something they desperately need." He looked up at the team. "We're not just another harvest. We're their last hope." Suddenly, alarms began wailing. The lighting shifted to a deep red. "They know we're here," Chen barked. "Sarah, the database. Now." Sarah sprinted toward the central processing core they'd identified on their maps. The others followed, Wallace taking point as security drones materialized from the walls. His modified weapons sparked to life, sending electromagnetic pulses that disabled the drones. They burst into the core chamber. At its center stood a pillar of living crystal, pulsing with data streams. Sarah connected her interface, her fingers flying across the controls. "I'm in, downloading everything, their history, their plans. There," she gasped. "Colonel, the final protocol. It's not what we thought." "What is it?" Chen demanded while Wallace held off approaching security. "Complete planetary processing. They're not going to harvest slowly like other worlds. They plan to process Earth's entire population at once. Billions of people, converted to genetic material in a single event. They've never done this before because they've never been this desperate." "How long do we have?" Elena asked. 7 days. The fleet is already moving into position." A new voice echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Zara materialized before them, her beautiful form flickering with energy. "Humans," she said, her voice carrying genuine regret. "You were not supposed to discover this. We truly wish to spare you the fear." "Spare us?" Chen stepped forward. "You're planning genocide." "Survival," Zara corrected. "My species is dying. Our genetic code is collapsing. We've searched the galaxy for a solution, and only Earth's genetic patterns can save us. Your DNA has something unique, something we've never encountered. So you'll murder billions?" Elena challenged. "To save trillions. My people span 1,000 worlds. Would you not do the same to save humanity?" Sarah's download completed. She had everything. But as she turned to signal the others, Zara raised her hand. Energy barriers materialized around them. "I cannot let you leave with that information. But I promise, your absorption into our collective will be painless. Your genetics will live on in us." It was Wallace who noticed it first. The biological samples Torres had been scanning were reacting to their presence. The containers holding human DNA were resonating, pulsing in sync. "The samples," Torres whispered. "They're still active, still alive." Sarah understood in a flash of insight. "Our DNA, the unique sequences, they're not just regenerative. They're adaptive, resistant." She turned to her tablet, diving into the stolen data. There it was, buried in the benefactor's research. Humans were different. Their genetic structure had an unprecedented ability to resist manipulation, to maintain its integrity even when harvested. "That's why they need so many of us," she said. "Our genetics fight back. They can't properly integrate human DNA unless they overwhelm it with sheer numbers." Elena was already working, her scientific mind racing. "If our DNA resists their harvesting process, what happens if we reverse it? Turn their own collection against them?" "Impossible," Zara said, but for the first time, there was uncertainty in her voice. "Nothing's impossible for humans," Chen replied. Torres and Elena worked frantically, reconfiguring his scanner into a transmitter. Sarah fed it data from the stolen files, the benefactor's own harvesting frequencies. Wallace managed to break one of the specimen containers, releasing the preserved genetic material into the air. "What are you doing?" Zara demanded. "Giving those stolen genetics a voice," Elena said. "Every species you've harvested, their DNA still remembers. And human genetics, they don't just resist. They inspire resistance in others." The chamber began to shake. The specimen containers flickered, their contents becoming agitated. The stored genetic patterns of hundreds of dead civilizations began to resonate with the human frequency. "No," Zora screamed. "You don't understand. Without the harvest, we'll die." "Then find another way," Chen said. "Cooperation, not consumption. That's how humanity survived. That's what makes us different." The energy barriers holding them failed as the station's systems overloaded. Throughout the benefactor fleet, the same resonance spread. Their carefully maintained genetic repositories rebelled, the stolen DNA of 1,000 worlds awakening to the human frequency of defiance. Sarah grabbed the core crystal itself, yanking it free. The station shuddered, beginning to lose orbit. "Time to go," Chen ordered. As they ran for the transport chamber, Zara's voice followed them, no longer beautiful but desperate. "You've doomed us all. Without the harvest, we'll face extinction. Then face it with dignity," Elena called back. "Like all those species you destroyed." They reached the transport platform, just as the station's structure began to fail. Sarah activated their beacon, praying it still worked. As the transport beam enveloped them, she saw something remarkable through the viewports. The benefactor fleet was retreating, their ships flickering and failing as their stolen genetics rebelled against their captors. They materialized back on Earth to find chaos. Around the world, the benefactor's gifts were failing. Medical devices shut down. Energy systems went dark. But humanity didn't collapse. Instead, they adapted, survived. thrived. The data Sarah had stolen revealed everything. When the truth was broadcast globally, humanity's response wasn't panic but determination. The benefactors had left Earth not just with their technology, but with something more important: knowledge that humanity could stand against galactic threats. 6 months later, Sarah stood before the newly formed Earth Defense Council. The modified DNA resonator had been refined, turned into a planetary defense system. Any species attempting forced genetic harvesting would trigger the same rebellion that had defeated the benefactors. "We've received signals," she reported. "Other worlds that were marked for harvest. The resonance we created spread through subspace. Slave populations are breaking free. The benefactors' empire is collapsing." "And the benefactors themselves?" Chen asked. Their last transmission spoke of trying to find a peaceful solution to their genetic crisis. They're attempting to negotiate with their former victims, offering technology in exchange for voluntary genetic donations. "Will it work?" Sarah smiled slightly. "That depends on whether they truly learned the lesson. The universe isn't meant to be consumed. It's meant to be shared." Outside, Earth spun on. Forever changed. Humanity had faced its first galactic predator and emerged not just victorious but transformed. They'd turned from potential victims into liberators, their unique genetic gift becoming a key that freed enslaved worlds across the galaxy. The stars no longer seemed cold and distant. They were full of potential allies, freed by humanity's defiance. Earth had found its place in the cosmos not through submission, but through resistance. And in laboratories around the world, human scientists worked to understand their genetic gift, determined to use it to heal rather than harm. The age of the harvesters was ending. The age of humanity among the stars had just begun.